So in this video, I want to talk about the basics of contact management within Microsoft Dynamics 365 for Sales and explain why it's so important. So in order to explain that, I'll just do a quick history lesson, I guess. So the first sort of contact management type applications, which really were the sort of precursor to what became CRM, sort of came out probably with ACT, I think, in about 1987. And these were very basic contact management apps. And what they allowed you to do is store details about your contacts and then be able to record the interactions you had with them. And most importantly, be able to schedule follow-ups with them for the future. Now, that was quite revolutionary at the time. So if you were working in sales, and I was at the time, then before you had contact management software, you were dealing with lots of potential customers, trying to remember to, send out quotations, follow them up, stay in touch with people who hadn't got budget now but might have budget in the future, or if you've got customers, just be able to stay in touch with them over time. Trying to do that with lots and lots of different customers and lots of different follow-ups was very, very difficult to do manually, in fact virtually impossible. You could have maybe a Rolodex or file cards with details of your contacts on there and then try and use some sort of diary in order to schedule your follow-ups and use that to manage those. But it was very difficult to do, and as somebody that was doing it at the time, it really was in a hair on fire type pain, because what happened was you ended up forgetting to call people and missing out on opportunities, and that's the problem that the early contact management software solved. And contact management is still important today. So let's go into Dynamics and just talk about the elements that fit with contact management within the Dynamics 365 for Sales app. So if I go into an accounts area here, I've obviously a list of my organizations, but let's say I wanted to target a new organization. I can just add them as a new record. Let's call them new account. Simple. I think it's only one mandatory field, so you know how bad my typing is. We won't go into much depth here. Let's just save that. That should save for us now. So we've created the organization record. It's worth saying, actually, the first version is ACT. There was no such thing as organizations as such. It was very one-dimensional. Everything was a contact record. But things have evolved. So we would set up an account record and information about the business itself. And then within our related area, we've got our related contacts. If we wanted to create a new contact, best to always do it from the organization, because it inherits information held on the organization record. But if I want to create a new contact, I can say I want to contact Richard Test. This is probably going to flag that we've got a duplicate, and I'm going to put in an email address and save and close that. And it is going to tell me I've used my name and email several times before, but I'm going to ignore and save that. So I've now added me as a contact record associated with that organization. If I open that up, you can see my record. So within these records of contact and organization, obviously we can store what data that we want to track. From a contact management perspective, then I'm going to want to be able to store information like contact details, particularly phone numbers, emails, addresses. People might have multiple phone numbers, might have multiple emails, so we need to be able to sort of accommodate that. We'll keep this sort of nice and simple now. So that's one dimension of it. It's being able to track that information in the system about that contact and about that organization. But we can also track through the interactions we have with them, because that's important as well. So when we have interactions with people, if we can sort of gather that information in the system, when we next have to contact them in 6 months' time, we can very easily look through the system, understand the previous communications we've had, and get a picture of the conversation that we need to have with them, which makes us a lot more effective. So let's say on this one, new account is somebody we're targeting. We've identified Richard Test as a key person there that we want to get in touch with. Perhaps we want to reach out to them by sending out an email. So I might go to my timeline, add a new activity of type email. I could use an existing template, one that's stored in the back end of the system, or one that I create for myself and manage within my user settings. And I can give this a subject, and we're just going to call this a test, and we're just going to call this a test as well, for the sake of brevity. But I can now send that, and that's going to go out from my system. It'll go through my sent folders in Outlook, but that's going to go out to me, Richard Boardman, at that particular email address. So I can use that as a start my interaction with this particular contact. Now, let's say I've sent that out, but I now want to remember to follow that up. So I could put a phone call record in there, follow up email, and I can give that a due date, and I can say that I want to do that tomorrow, Friday the 20th. I can save and close that, and then that saves that record against and that particular contact record. So I'm starting to build up this history. Now, let's say I go into make that call, so I can open that up. I can say, right, well, we've had the conversation. Let's say spoke to Richard. I will not try and do too much more. But let's say we spoke to Richard, and they said, Richard F. Right, I spoke to Richard, and they're happy to have a meeting. I can close that phone call as completed. We've made that phone call, close phone call, and we can now schedule an appointment. So we could schedule that. If I just go back, so we now got the phone call. So they said we can have an appointment. I can now put an appointment record. So create the appointment, and maybe we're going to do that on the 25th at, let's say we're going to do that at 2 o'clock. And I can now give that a name, intro meeting, and save and close that. So you can see what we're starting to do here. We're starting to track those interactions. Let's say we had that meeting, but we didn't agree necessarily on how to go forward immediately. But they said that, contact us again in 3 months' time. We might have some budgets free to be able to do whatever we need to do. So again, I can put in that activity, phone activity, to follow that up in 3 months' time. Now, interestingly, this is all sort of rolling up at the organizational level. So even though I'm doing this for this particular contact, this particular Richard test, all those activities are now visible at the organization record, because if I'm dealing with 5 or 6 different people, or 15 or 20 different people, I don't want to have to open every contact record to get a picture of what's going on. I'd just like to go to one header record and go and look at things at the account level, and just understand at the organizational level exactly what's going on. So we got that automatic roll up of those activities, so they appear at the organizational level. Now, the other thing we can do is view activities in their own right. So we have an area in the system called activities, and this is going to give me all activities for all contacts and other record types I can have activities associated with in the system. So, I can see within this is Richard's open activities. I haven't got anything open at this moment in time. Well, we probably should have, because we set up an appointment, but let's see if that's going to appear there. There we go. So there's that intro meeting that we put in there. So that is a way of viewing my activities, and I can filter these. I've got various different system views and personal views that I've set up there. We've talked about those in other videos. I've got this due, so I can look at ones that are overdue, due in the next 7 days, etc. And I can filter that down by particular activity type if I want to. So I can manage that within my activities view. And that means I've got a list I can go to as somebody in sales. I've got a list I can go to. It's telling me all the things that I've got to do that day or that week or that month, or that are overdue. And this is very much how somebody in sales can manage these interactions efficiently with multiple prospect contacts, customer contacts, etc., and lots of different activity type going on at scale any one moment in time. So the benefit of of contact management is simply that we become more effective as salespeople. We can remember to do things at the right time. We can do things in an informed way because we've got that history of information. We understand information about that particular contact, that particular organization. So it just makes us more effective. It's, and I think the message I want to try and get across here is back in the late 1987, when ACT first came out, this was really addressing a genuine hair on fire issue that you couldn't manage relationships, you couldn't sell effectively at scale without tools like this. And I think that's something that we forget sometimes when we set up our CRM systems. Often what we're setting up is something that gives us organization and control, but we do need to remember that we need to give the users themselves, people like salespeople, the tools that they need to be effective at their job, and we need to sort of think through the setup of the system so it delivers on that. Anyway, hopefully that's been a sort of helpful recap on what contact management is and what the benefits are of doing it right. This is one in a range of videos that we've done on Dynamics 365 for Sales, so feel free to check those out. Also, if you've got Dynamics and you're feeling you're not quite getting as much out of it as you might want to, then feel free to reach out if you want some guidance on potential next steps. I've put some links, but I always happy to have a chat with people about their particular situation. Anyway, hopefully that's been helpful, and hopefully see you again soon.